You can tell so much of a person by just looking at her. And as I spoke to her yesterday, I felt the gentleness in her eyes. You can tell she's a traveler because she was calm and observant. She feels that traveling has opened her mind to different realities, and she feels like a global citizen. Her advice on traveling is to stay longer in one place, because then you will know the people and the little shops, rather than just the famous places.
Ms. Norie Quintos is a well-recognized authority in the travel industry with the expertise in developing contents for cultural and sustainable destinations. She is also editor-at-large for the Washington, D.C.-based National Geographic Travel Media. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Ms. Norie Quintos for her topic, Adventure Travel Trends.
Thank you, Rital and Anish. Namaste. Good morning. And because I share an Asian heritage with many of you, I will also add a greeting in Tagalog, the main language of the Philippines. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Thank you to the organizers, partners, and sponsors of the Himalayan Travel Mart, and to our hosts here in Kathmandu, and to delegates from all over the world. It's wonderful to be here with you on the roof of the world, especially as a medical issue actually delayed my arrival here by a week. But such is the spirit of the Himalayas that it really couldn't keep me away. We are in the country that arguably gave birth to adventure travel, as we've heard so clearly from Doug Scott, on Everest in 1953. And I'm here to talk to you about the future of travel. But let me be clear, that Everest photo that has gone viral in the last couple of weeks is really not the future, but the past. Adventure travel, after all, is about blazing new trails and taking on a challenge. 67 years later, in 2019, the world has changed. Where travel is going, and where I hope we will all be going, is very different. And that's what we'll be talking about in the next half hour. One thing I do know, Everest is more than just the climb to the summit. The Himalayas are more than just Everest. And Nepal is more than just the Himalayas. Oh. A little bit of perspective on the state of the world that we are living in for context. According to a new study, almost 40% of the population are more anxious than they were last year, and another 40% said they were equally anxious. Now, to be precise, this was a poll of Americans, but I think these numbers can be safely extrapolated to the industrialized West, if not to the whole world. And what do we worry about? Well, anything and everything. To be sure, there are many valid reasons for concern. The declining health of our planet, for one, caused by human activities, but making everything worse, our addiction to our phones and our insistence on 24/7 connectivity. One interesting study that I'll mention, stress hormones were found to rise when people see social media posts of others having fun in amazing places. It's called Facebook envy, or FOMO, which is an acronym for fear of missing out. So, if you're posting right now on social media about how much fun we're all having in Nepal, just know that you're contributing to probably making your friends really miserable. The irony of this epoch of anxiety is that according to most objective measures, the world is actually doing better on some of the most basic indicators of human flourishing, including poverty, literacy, life expectancy, and equality. For example, before the 17th century, only 5% of people could read or write. But more than 90% of the world's population are literate today. And 200 years ago, 90% of the world lived in extreme poverty. Today, less than 10% do. Obviously, this is metadata, and it may not necessarily reflect what's happening on the ground in different regions. But while the world may not be as bad as we think, we nevertheless live in a permanent state of anxiety. So much so that the travel intelligence company Skift mashed the two words together, permanent and anxiety, and coined a new word, permanxiety. So we can all relate, right? What's the answer to permanxiety? Well, here's my answer. Let's just say that I think the adventure travel industry, and by that I actually mean every single one of you here, is uniquely positioned to address this problem, this malady of modernity. Now, some of you may well ask or say, I'm not in the adventure travel business. This is Nepal after all. Adventure is, adventure is different than most of the world. But when I say adventure travel, I'm using a different definition, how the term is evolving, not the definition from 1953 or even a decade ago. So you may not think of yourselves in the adventure travel industry, but you are. And we'll get to why that is in a few minutes. So stay with me. Perhaps people don't need therapy dogs or meditation apps or anti-anxiety pills as much as they need an adventure. Perhaps people need to stop scrolling down their Facebook feeds and getting depressed and join us here in the Himalaya in real life, IRL. I'm talking about something that takes people out of their normal environment, puts them in nature and a new culture, provides them a challenge that they can face and handle, preferably gets their blood pumping, and gives them a new perspective on themselves and their lives, and more importantly, recalibrates their relationship with the world. The many stories that you hear about people returning from an adventure trip and remaking their lives, often starting nonprofits and new businesses, that's this kind of travel. These are all examples of this kind of travel. So now let's look at some trends that we in the industry can capitalize on to further propel our businesses into the future in a sustainable way. Nature is the new necessity and the new luxury. What does this mean? How is something so basic to human life and vital to our survival a trend? Well, here's why. We've taken it for granted for so long that we are only now rediscovering what we are in danger of losing. You've heard these terms: nature deficit disorder, forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, nature therapy, digital detox, rewilding. These are trendy terms that all basically mean the same thing. We need to get back to nature. And Doug Scott referenced that as well in his talk. The big news is that science and data have gotten involved to tell us something that we already know intrinsically to be true, that being in nature makes you healthier and happier. We knew it all along, but science is now confirming it. Technology is allowing neuroscientists to take their measurement devices into the field, such as portable EEGs, that are capable of measuring brain waves. And what have they found? That the frontal lobe, that part of our brain that's hyper-engaged in modern life, it goes haywire in an urban area. But in a park, in nature, it deactivates. It slows down. Alpha waves grow stronger, which indicate a calm but alert state. That state so loved by meditators and monks. I'm not telling you something that you don't know. What I'm telling you is that your potential customer is now just starting to realize this. That list you see up there are scientifically proven benefits of being in nature. There is no prescription medication available in the world today that can deliver all of that with no negative side effects. And why is nature the new luxury? Because, as we'll see a little later, The definition of luxury has also changed. It's not just about labels and brands anymore. It's about obtaining something that's rare. Time, access, uniqueness, authenticity, connection, which is why nature has become a luxury item. And just how rich is your region in this resource? It's no secret that you hit the nature jackpot when it comes to Nepal and the greater Himalaya region. You know this better than I. You've got the highest point on Earth. Everybody knows that. Plus 6 vegetation zones ranging from tropical to tundra, more than 800 species of birds, and an incredible array of reptiles and mammals, including 2 biggies, the greater one-horned rhino and the Royal Bengal tiger. Many destinations have already bulldozed their paradises and can never get them back. What's amazing is that Nepal currently has world-class, low-impact trekking routes and wonderful national parks that get you close to this kind of nature. It's vital to recognize that the wealth of the natural resources you have and ensure that so-called development is planned appropriately and does not imperil what gives this area of the world its unique characteristics. Here's another fun science fact about nature, and this was gleaned from a study of astronauts viewing Earth from space. And being in nature inspires a sense of awe, and awe leads to happiness. The dictionary defines awe, that's A-W-E, as an overwhelming feeling of reverence, admiration, and wonder. Apparently, looking at perceptual vastness, comparing it to our comparative smallness inspires feelings of well-being. But you don't have to be an astronaut to feel awe. Just look at the world all around us. Look at the pictures that Doug Scott showed us. I like this idea of awe. The world is so cynical and jaded, and awe is the opposite of that. I think there may be interesting implications and applications for your businesses here. How can you help travelers encounter that sense of awe? And how would they feel about your company or your hotel or your destination if you can lead them there? And for a destination, how can you ensure that the experience for travelers is such that they can maintain that feeling of awe throughout their entire trip? Not just while trekking or taking tea, but on arrival at the airport and while getting around in Kathmandu and on departure. A lot of you in the room have heard the buzzword transformational travel, am I right? Am I right? Yes. In fact, some of you may already be tired of that term. It has been used and overused over the last couple of years. The idea is that a destination will change your life, or an attraction, or a hotel, or a drink. A dish will change your life. Most of it is hype and hyperbole. Well, except for Momo. Now, Momo has definitely changed my life. But Momo aside, most travel is oversold as, quote, transformational. However, that does not mean that the concepts that underpin transformational travel are not solid. So let's take some time to unpack the term. And let's start with the luxury travel category. The definition of luxury travel has been evolving along with the traveler. It has moved from product, with its external focus and its goal of status, to experience, with its internal focus and goal of good feelings, to transformation, with its focus on purpose and its goal of meaning. As you can see, as we move down the line, things get more complex. A transformational trip can be hard to package because transformation is so personal. A trip that changes my life can look very different than one that changes yours, or yours. So as we've said, you cannot guarantee that someone will be transformed on your trip. That is hype and hyperbole and marketing, but you can foster it. The Transformational Travel Council, to which I'm an advisor and a member, is a group of operators and practitioners committed to helping their clients have these kinds of experiences. And it recognizes 3 factors that make up a transformational trip. 1, intent. That there's a shared understanding between guest and host that a trip could make a traveler experience an inner shift. 2, challenge. That the traveler will have opportunities to move out of their inner comfort zone. And 3, reflection and meaning making. That there is facilitation and support for thinking and making life changes before, during, and after a trip. And I put this quote up there by Sherpa Tenzing Norgay because I think it alludes to the kind of travel I'm talking about. The virtual cycle that we're looking for, travel leading to personal transformation, which in turn leads to collective change and a better world. So small adventure boutique operators and social enterprises, some of them are here, are leading this charge, designing trips with these features in mind, often using Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey as a framework. If you don't know Joseph Campbell, you should. That's not Joseph Campbell. But you knew that, right? Maybe you've heard of the phrase, follow your bliss. Joseph Campbell coined that term. But more significantly, Joseph Campbell studied the mythology of the world and found that there was one story, the monomyth, he called it, that every single culture in the world shared. That's one story that every single culture in the world has. And that story is the hero's journey. You actually already know the story. Many books and movies follow the same storyline, almost exactly. Luke Skywalker, Star Wars, Frodo in Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. It's all the story of personal transformation, and it has universal appeal. There are 12 steps, which include the call to adventure, the ordeal, the return with the elixir. And there are elements of all of this in the world's great religions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, Sikhism, and Christianity. In fact, I think that there are some obvious connections here with spiritual tourism, so I look forward to engaging with that a little bit later. So, if you want to facilitate personal transformation in your visitors, look at your product and your destination and identify points where it may connect with the hero's journey. How can you help craft an external journey that facilitates the internal journey? And how do you communicate that? There is so much here to plumb, and this really is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, on the right side of the slide, we can see the link between transformational travel and adventure travel. Research on the term adventure travel, taken by the Adventure Travel Trade Association, shows that more travelers of all ages are looking for meaning and purpose in their travels and to come home changed in some way. Adventure travel used to be all about fun and thrills and risk-taking. And it's amazing to me to see how the concept of adventure travel has changed over a decade. Travelers now insist on something more. We all want to be heroes in our own lives. We are hardwired for transformation and change. And travel, literally the physical movement through space, is one of the best ways to achieve it. We already know that you can't force transformation in travelers, but can you spark it? Can you push it along? Because studies have shown that people will return to a place again and again where there has been an emotional connection. And that results in a greater propensity to want to share and to recommend. And wouldn't we all want to have others do our marketing for us. Let's look at this one other way. This slide shows that a successful adventure experience has external components of nature, activity, and culture that come together in a whole experience. And then on the right, we have a clear visual of the traveler's internal experience. This is what has motivated them for adventure travel and what they're hoping to gain on a deeper level. These are things that travelers are seeking, but they often don't articulate it. They're looking for the novel and the unique, wellness, both physical and mental, experiencing a challenge that leads to transformation. In other words, the hero's journey. This is the value of our industry and why I think it's the answer to the malady of modernity. The value that we deliver has always come from the ways in which we address people's deeper needs. And the engine of our sector is how we design experiences to speak to people's deeper needs. A desire for growth, for learning, for transformation. First, an acknowledgement. In the last 60 years, the industrial mass tourism model has provided jobs and incomes and lifted thousands out of poverty. But, to quote my friend Anna Pollock, founder of the movement Conscious Travel, like any adolescent that wishes to become an adult, it must now wake up, grow up, and step up. Anyone involved in tourism, whether government or industry, must wake up, grow up, and step up. Over-tourism is destroying the character and livability of European cities, such as Barcelona and Venice. Over-tourism is ruining coastlines in Asia, where famed beaches in Thailand and my own home country of the Philippines have been overrun and had to be closed. And no need to remind you of the elephant in the room. Over-tourism is a dark specter looming over Everest. Over-tourism occurs when these disparities occur. One, between the volume of activity and the capacity of the destination, or between the type of activity and the capacity to support it, or between traveler behavior and social norms in the destination. So over-tourism can have many faces. It can occur when visiting a centuries-old village with fragile infrastructure in a big bus instead of exploring by foot. It can occur when too many people attempt a summit in one day. It can even occur when too many travelers irritate local residents, behaving or dressing in disrespectful ways. I put some eyebrow-raising visitor numbers on the slide, representing global, sector, and local trends. In the past, these kinds of numbers would make everyone jump for joy, but now we have seen enough examples of over-tourism to know that numbers tell an incomplete story, and that a tourism strategy of chasing numbers like heads and beds is counterproductive and short-sighted. These statistics should give us all pause. So we need new metrics, and there are great case studies out there, and I'm going to mention just one. Earlier this year, Denmark's self-governing Faroe Islands in the North Atlantic closed the entire set of islands, the entire archipelago, to regular tourists for a few days, as 100 volunteers were recruited to work with islanders to build walking paths and viewpoints. The director of the tourism board said, "For us, tourism is not just about numbers. We also have a responsibility to our community and to our beautiful, unspoiled natural environment. Our aim is to preserve and protect the islands, ensuring sustainable and responsible growth." Remember, this is the director of the tourism board. You know, there is no silver bullet. There is no one answer. Each destination needs a customized and multi-pronged approach. Others have experimented with limits on visitor numbers, tourism taxes, visitor pledges, limiting concessions catering to mass tourism, and incentivizing sustainable operators. What is the set of solutions that will work for this incredible destination? It will take coordinated effort between the public and private sector, but the time to act is now. Destinations need a more nuanced set of metrics to measure the socio-economic benefits of tourism. There are some interesting numbers that came out of a USAID study in Jordan, and it showed that mass tourism left 15% of the money in the destination, while adventure travel leaves 65% of the money in the destination. Now think back to the last slide, showing global tourism growing at a 5% rate and adventure tourism growing at a 20% rate. The takeaway, some kinds of travel and some kinds of travelers are more beneficial to a destination than others. So it's not about developing tourism so much as developing the right kind of tourism. The good news is that travelers want to travel responsibly. And guess what? They are willing to pay more to know that they are not doing harm while they travel. So, explain to them why you are not providing single-use plastic water bottles or straws, or why you keep the Jeep at a respectful distance from wildlife. Let them see you picking up trash along the trail. Explain how you improve the lives of your staff, give back to your communities, reduce their carbon footprint. Actively engage travelers in your efforts to improve the world. Not only will you create a positive ripple effect, but you are creating a loyal customer. So, what are the factors that make a destination good for travelers? The Adventure Tourism Development Index tells us it's a ranking of adventure tourism potential and competitiveness for countries around the world based on 10 pillars, which you can see over there on the right side. I pulled the numbers out for Nepal. Nepal scores highest for adventure activity resources and image. Its lowest scores are in the areas of safety, health, and humanitarian. What's really interesting to note is that what makes a good destination to adventure travelers is also what makes a country a good place to live for residents. These two goals are linked, meaning that focusing on improving safety, health, and humanitarian pillars will have the dual benefit of attracting an economically beneficial traveler and also improve the quality of life for Nepalese citizens. Here's another big headline from the recent research. Hiking is the #1 activity for adventure travelers, up from number 6 a decade ago. Look no further than the popularity of long-distance trails and walks, such as the Appalachian Trail in the US, the Camino de Santiago in Europe, the Jordan Trail, and of course, your own Great Himalaya Trail right here. What's wonderful to note is that these tourism products are not just transforming travelers, but restoring communities and culture, creating local jobs, and protecting environments, which is really the point of tourism, isn't it? To create sustainable economic and social growth. Now, can more be done to capitalize on your own system of trails? Do you suffer from what Peru sometimes suffers from, that Machu Picchu is such a bright light that it obscures other products? I think there's a session later today that delves on this more deeply, so I'll be sure to attend that. I bet most people in this room can name the first men to summit Everest, right? No need to show hands, but I think we can all name that. Now, what about the first woman to summit Everest? Yes? Okay. Yes, thank you. Now, I had to look that up, and I bet most of us didn't know that. It was, if you didn't hear the gentleman, it is Junko Tabei, a Japanese woman, in 1975. Now, against this backdrop, I've put some interesting facts on the screen, and I'll highlight just two. Searches for female solo traveler grew by 52% in 1 year between 2016 and 2017. The other thing I'll point out is a majority of female travelers booking tours are going solo, according to leading tour operators. There clearly is a growing market that you should be paying attention to. And no, it is not just about adding stereotypical things such as shopping opportunities or spa services to your product. It's about truly understanding and addressing the needs and concerns of women, including hygiene, safety, and privacy, as well as demonstrating a commitment to women's issues, including more women in management and entrepreneurial roles, more women guides, equal pay and treatment. This is a big topic, and I'm just touching on it here. One final trend. Despite our love affair and our addiction to technology, humans still rule. In a study of so-called super travelers, Skift found that travelers today have more power in their iPhones than most airlines had in a mainframe 30 years ago. But that doesn't mean that they want to be left to navigate this world all alone after all. As digital overtakes our lives, there's a craving for human connections. For the travel industry, that means human connections throughout the life cycle of a trip, before, during, and after. But I think that it also means there's a real hunger for answers and a realization that modern society, with all its technology, does not have all the answers, and a returning, a pivoting to the ancient cultures and indigenous peoples for their wisdom and traditions. With destinations increasingly dealing with the implications of climate change, travelers, already oriented to experience and transformation, can look to the first stewards, the world's indigenous peoples, First Nations, culturally distinct tribes, ethnic minorities, those closest to the land. Nepal is a multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-religious, and multicultural country. The country is the homeland to 125 castes and ethnic groups, 123 languages, and 10 religions. Indigenous peoples comprise more than 35% of the population of 26.5 million. Without romanticizing, without objectifying, without appropriating, we can nevertheless look to you and ask the questions: how are you practicing resilience and adaptation? What stories do you tell? What wisdom do you have? Community, nature, sustainability, transformation. This is adventure travel territory. This is the potential of our industry. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Nepal. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Ms. Quintos. Ms. Quintos, we will still require you on the stage. Ms. Quintos. So thank you so much, Ms. Norie Quintos, for your presentation topic on the adventure travel trends. And now to hand over the token of appreciation, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Dipendra Purustakar, the former Secretary, Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Civil Aviation, and is also the former Chairman of Nepal Tourism Board.
Thank you so much. Miss Quintos said, we are happier when we are close to nature. And when nature calls, we need to excuse ourselves. So here's to taking a 15-minute nature call break.